White supremacists are scared to death of the census findings. White supremacists saw this approaching from a distance: the browning of America, the shrinking of the white population, and the explosion of the mixed race population. And they did everything they could try to stop it. But they couldn't. It was like a big freight train coming down the track at full speed, heading right at them. Welcome to The Naked Truth on the USA Podcast channel, the program where I share the important notes of the day from newspapers, magazines, social networks, radio, and television in the U.S. from a Hispanic point of view that impacts all Americans, not just some. I'm Juan Andres, also known as Senor USA. They tried to clamp down on immigration, both lawful and unlawful. They waged a propaganda war against abortion, and they lobbied for traditional family values in the hopes of persuading more white women to have more babies. They orchestrated a system of mass incarceration that siphoned millions of young American marriage-age men, disproportionately Black and Hispanic, out of the baby-producing population, locked up in jails with other men. They refused to pass gun control. Laws against gun violence disproportionately ravage Black communities because if they kill each other, there's going to be less Black babies. On every level, in every way, these forces were wittingly or not worked up to prevent the non-white population from growing, and yet we did anyway. And they're frightened out of their wits because we accomplished it. Hispanics accounted for about half the country's growth over the past decade, up by about 23%. That's a huge number. The Asian population grew faster than expected, up by about 36%, but obviously they're a smaller group of people. But a combined Hispanic and Asian rise makes up 1/5 of the country's total. Nearly 1 in 4 Americans now identify themselves as Hispanic or Asian. And when you throw in the Black community and the Native American community and the communities of color and of mixed race, it is an awesome amount of future voters that are going to change the face of America. And supremacists are just like a thunderbolt hit them. They don't know what to do. The Black population grew by 6%, an increase that represented about 1/10 of the country's growth. So the Blacks are about 10%. The Asians and the Hispanics are 23%. That's 33%. And when you add in the Native Americans and all the other mixed race people in the country, are you facing a change in American demographics that's never, ever happened in the United States. Americans who identified as non-Hispanic and have more than one race or mixed race rose the fastest of all the groups, jumping to 13.5 million Americans from 6 million. That's over 50%. Awesome. Meanwhile, the white population in absolute numbers declined for the first time in the history of the United States of America. Dreadful. This data is dreadful for white supremacists. They see this kind of change as a monumental threat, and they're trying to deal with it accordingly. So what is the white supremacist solution going forward? They lost the numbers. That they can't catch up. They already lost it. They're on the way to being a minority, and they know it. There's no way that they can reverse this trend. It's coming too fast. It's a train. You can't stop it on a dime. You can't do crazy things because the train is going to come anyway. So, well, population size helps determine the power you wield. So the only desperation option left to white supremacists now is to find ways to help white people maintain their grip on power even as they become a minority for the first time in U.S. history. And the best way to do that is to deny as many minorities as possible access to power. We're now seeing a shocking, blatant attempt at voter suppression across the country. And I believe that this is just the start of something, not the end of it. We're in the very early stages of a racial war. And I'm not talking I'm not talking violence, not from the minority community, maybe from the white supremacist community, but we will not initiate anything of the sort. We're peaceful people, always have been. Look at the suffering that blacks have tolerated for so many, many, many decades, hundreds of years. And all they tried to do was just try to achieve freedom. They didn't go on mass murders and killings or anything of the sort. Hispanics never did. White people have, though, throughout history. So the efforts to disenfranchise minority voters will grow only more brazen as the white power movement becomes more desperate. And they will become more desperate because they can't out-baby us. It's too late. We're likely to see this trend in full swing as the redistricting process gets underway. Be aware of what they're doing. The fact that much of the population growth over the past 10 years, this is very important. I'm going to repeat it. The fact that much of the population growth over the last 10 years occurred in the Sun Belt of the United States, where the Republicans control redistricting, gives Republicans who are overwhelmingly white, and that's a conservative word. It's not overwhelmingly white. It's totally white except for a few people of color. Few. You can count them between your fingers in power. You can count them on your fingers and your toes. And I don't think you're going to count them all. Yet, another chance to preserve their political power in the face of unfavorable and devastating demographic changes. They're going to get very desperate. As the non-white population grows, these Sun Belt states, so does their political power. In response, many of these states are now trying to suppress non-white votes because they know that these states that they control, non-white populations are growing astronomically fast in their face, in their states, where they have the political power. The Sun Belt states are Alabama, Arizona, Florida, Georgia, Louisiana, Mississippi, New Mexico, South Carolina, Texas, North Carolina, and Nevada. Now, I think you start seeing why Trump was so upset about what happened in Georgia, and why Florida was so important and still is to him, and why he wanted recounts in Arizona, and why he was upset about Nevada. These are states they're targeting because they're Sun Belt states, and they're growing very fast in the direction of a non-white majority. So the Republicans, led by Donald Trump, zero in on Nevada, North Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Arizona, and a few more, Michigan, Pennsylvania, to add a few. Importantly, remember that the Republican Party is leaning towards a takeover of both houses of Congress in 2022 and the presidency in 2024, with the intent of changing our system of government from a democracy to an autocracy. And they'll tell you that. According to Google, an autocracy is a system of government governed by one person or group with absolute power. The reverse of a democracy. All decisions made from the top down, and the people down here, the 330 million Americans, just say, yes, sir, and march to their tune. No longer the power of the people through their representatives. That will be changed. Why now? Understand what's happening. The demographic changes have the supremacist movement absolutely going berserk. They are going to try everything they can. They already did. They attacked the Capitol to prevent the democratically elected President of the United States, Joe Biden, from taking power. That should let you know what they're willing to do. This was all done by their leader, Donald Trump. And guess what? Fox News cable star Tucker Carlson will visit or has visited Hungary. And he is Trump's voice in this right-wing network. So what's the big deal? He's a radio announcer. Yes. But millions of people listen to Fox. A third of the population, 2/3 don't. They listen to reasonable programs. But a third are very much involved in listening to Fox News. That's where they brainwash them. That's where they repeat things over and over and over and over and over and over. So by the time the 2022 election comes, they have already, like dough being prepared to be thrown into the oven and cooked to any shape they want, is already accomplished. The dough makers, the ones that are kneading the dough, are these radio announcers, radio barkers on Fox News. The most important one, Tucker Carlson. And guess what? Why do you think he's visiting Hungary? And Republicans are very quiet about this visit. And if you ask, a few of them will tell you that they're praising the autocratic leader, Viktor Orban, as an excellent leader that has done very positive things for Hungarians. Now, what is Orban's most noted accomplishment in Hungary? He's been elected 3 times, I think. Twice, and he's on his 3rd time. or third term. He's been elected twice, but it's a total of 3 terms. He was famous for instituting constitutional and legislative reforms in Hungary. In other words, he changed the constitution and the way the legislature worked in Hungary. Who's our legislature? Congress. That's the legislative branch, right? The executive branch is a president's branch. The legislative branch is the House of Representatives and the Senate, Congress. Both houses together are called Congress. They're our legislative branch. Well, why do you think that Tucker Carlson is going there? Trump can't go. And the famous politicians in the Republican Party have to be very careful. They can't appear to be coming out of airplanes in Hungary because it's going to look weird. What are you doing in an autocratic means dictatorship? What are you doing landing in a dictatorship to learn what? So they're sending their communication arm to learn as much as they can about how did you do this, Orban? How did you change that country, change its constitution and its legislative procedures, how you deal with laws, how you present them, how you make them legal, who votes, who doesn't vote, what votes count, so you get the results you're looking for. How did you do this, Orban? Whisper it to me so I can take it back to our leader in Mar-a-Lago and give him the details, because he can't come. If he comes, it'll be too negative. The Democrats will use it against him. And then we're going to have a problem during the election. So I'm coming in like I'm an entertainer, and I'm going to take back all the information you give me, sit down with Trump, our leader, feed it to him, and then he'll run it by his allies in the Republican Party, which is basically a white, male, autocratic party that wants to change the United States of America because it's not in their interest anymore. They don't have babies at the rate we do, so they have to disappear that advantage to keep the power. Now understand one thing. This is happening. This is happening right now as you're sitting at your dinner tables, eating peacefully at home. This is happening behind your backs. And it's going to hit you square in the face during the 2022 election. And by the time, if they get the power of the legislative branch, which is they're shooting for, because that's the first thing, change the legislative process in America. Because if you can do that and get the president elected in the next election, you can change everything. That's the end of democracy. And remember one thing, people with power historically fight to the end to maintain it. This is not going to be a peaceful situation. They've already said so. Why do you think they're going around attacking the Capitol? Why do you think there's militia groups? Is that democratic? The Proud Boys is democratic? The Oath Keepers are Democrats? A democratic process that our founders set up? And that for 250 years has made this the most powerful country in the world? Because a shrinking group of people want to maintain power and tell everybody else what to do, even though they now are going to become the majority because they're scared. Now remember, you got to be very careful when you corral a scared animal. A scared animal is going to do everything to protect himself because he's going to say, hey, I'm going to die if I don't defend myself. If you scare a cat and he's going to come at you, even though he's smaller, he's going to claw the hell out of you. A dog's going to bite the hell out of you. A bear is going to destroy you to pieces if you scare him. So understand that scared people with power are dangerous. And we just scared the hell out of them. Not intentionally. We're going about our business peacefully. We don't bear any responsibility that they're not reproducing like they used to. And we are. But we're going to be held accountable for that accomplishment. Be ready. Be extremely aware, informed, and ready for the 2022 election. This is going to be the most important event in your life because if they take over the legislative branch, that's a first step to change the country. And if in 2024 they take over the presidency, he'll sign everything they send to him. Right now, for 2 years, if you keep Biden in office, well, he's going to be in office. They're going to take over the legislative branch. He's not going to sign anything that puts the democracy in danger. But if in 2024 you elect a Republican president, he's going to sign everything that these autocratic Republicans throw his way. And that's the end of your country. That's the end of America as you know it. America, America, God shed its grace on thee. That's gone. Gone as you know it. If we don't fight for it with a vote and make sure that we stay informed. I'm Juan Andres, also known as Senor USA, on The Naked Truth. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time.